Welcome in everybody. My name is Mitch and welcome back to my video on Jamie's channel. And I'm back. I've returned. I'm back in this one to record and sit down and talk some fantasy and footy and whatever comes to mind. Obviously, I wasn't on last week. I've been super sick, dealing with some influenza. Post Magic Round meetup, Jamie or Maddie probably gave it to me. I'm not too sure which one. Obviously, they did a really good job last week. Jamie jumping on with Maddie Thompson, taking over on my spot. Luckily I've returned this week and I haven't been able to do much, to be honest. I've had the last week or so off work, just staring at my fantasy team, trying to come up with some pretty crazy combinations. And I've done a little bit of planning. I'm looking ahead as much as we can. Obviously, round 12 this week, the first major buy round, pretty exciting. Also pretty boring as well. I don't do much with my time other than fantasy and actually watching football. And the footy always seems to be pretty gross during these rounds with no Origin players, and there's less games, and it's all pretty dire. But I'm glad to be back on, talk some footy, talk some fantasy, see how my weeks went. I'm on the up, thankfully, into rank 2,900. I've had a bit of a mixed year for my standards, as many of you guys know, and I'm taking the fun approach into it in the next, little bit, see where that can take me. Obviously, you can see Kalol Matangi in my team. I did get that score, and we will touch on that really, really soon. We'll go over some of the trades I've made over the last few weeks. Obviously, I wasn't on last week, and as you can see in my team visually, there's some question marks. A few of you are probably looking at my team going, "What are you doing? Why do you have these absolute duds?" And I'm sure we'll touch into that. The Mitch effect maybe is what we'll call that. So yeah, round 11, I scored 980 points, which is actually really good considering I think the average of the week was about 930. So this is the first week, maybe all season, where I've actually had a good week. I know Jamie scored 930 points, and I'm not saying he had a bad week, but if you're comparing the two, that's an extra 50 points for me. And it's the first week that I've kind of had a lot of points compared to other teams that I'm looking at. Obviously, it's pretty hard to look at my rank and then the guys in the top five, top 10, which I'm always usually comparing myself to because I'm normally up at those higher ranks. But this season, being in the pack a little bit more, being down below, I'm finding it hard to compare my team with my squad value to the guys at the top because we're not really in the same bracket, and it's taken a hit to my ego a little bit, and yeah, but it's all good though. I'm playing fantasy for fun. The prizes and stuff aren't really worth it. I play this game because it's fun and my biggest hobby personally, so I'm not really in it for the prizes. So yeah, I scored 980, and that was a big thanks to Keon Matangi. Obviously, I brought him in this week, and we will go through my trades from round 10 as well, which I obviously you can see Leo Thompson, Britton Nickora, things like that. And then we'll touch in on my round 11 trades. Bit of future planning as well. Like I said, I've had all the time in the world. Probably still going to have some time. I'm not too sure if I'll be able to go to work just yet, but I've had all the time in the world and I've got so much time to still plan. I'm sick of planning. I'm sick of looking at future endeavors, but I have come up with some pretty fun things. So maybe we'll touch on that too. And I'm looking forward to it. So obviously 980 this week. And my trades were for this week, I brought in Joe Tarpanay and Keon Matangi for Couchman and Isaiah Yo. Now, Couchman, obviously, I know Jamie held. I think he was a trade, but I think, Jamie's circumstances are a little different with he got a lot of injuries, which we will touch on as well. Like round 11 was crazy. Luckily, my team didn't cop it as much. I only copped Jacob Carraz, but you got maybe Dylan Lucas as well, a bit up in the air. We don't know if he's going to be named or not. You had Nafahu White, all sorts of players going down injured, when we needed them the most. So yeah, Couchman, I sold for Keon Kalamatangi. I took the punt on going a week early just because their buy scheduling is the exact same. So Keon plays 15 and 18, which is why I was also really keen on Ewan Aitken. And that's a story in itself, which I will get into very soon. That was so frustrating for me. And I brought in Joe Tarpanay for Isaiah Yo. That just a bit of a straight swap. I was keen on Cam McInnes. I've talked on videos a long time. Cam McInnes is probably my favorite player to own in fantasy just because of how boring he is. You're not watching him play, you're just watching the minutes. But his PPM's been down a little bit, and Tarpanay just made the most amount of sense to me. He's a captain option this week. Him and Aaron Clark, which again is another thing we might talk about. Who do we captain? I have an opinion that might be different to other people on who I'm looking at captaining, but that's we'll get into that soon. So really, really happy with those two trades. In round 10, obviously, I did jump on the video that week but I didn't really get to talk about my results of the round and what happened. So obviously I did bring in Lucas, which, I was stoked with. I wasn't really stoked with him playing center and now having a dud shoulder. That's quite inconvenient. So hopefully he's named. Today, I'm recording this on a Monday night, but you guys will see this on a Tuesday morning. So hopefully he's there for TLT. I've got some plans in and around what I'll do if he's not named, which maybe we'll get into because, like I said, all I've been able to do is plan. I haven't had the time to do anything else while I've been sick. Bring in Britt Nikora, which a lot of people will say it's a mistake. And it's obviously last week, a trial is 53, I think, from memory, which, he did have a few attacking stats, but Britt Nikora is an attacking stat player in a really good side, top four side, you'd argue. Bit of a low one this week, 31. It was pretty hard watch, to be fair, when everybody brought in Hosking and I had Britt Nikora. Yeah, I was expecting a little bit more, only making 25 tackles or something, 25, 26 tackles, whatever the number was. It's pretty gross. But the tries are coming. He's going to score me 30s. He's going to score me 60s. That's what Britt Nikora is. And I knew that buying him. I even said that on the video. Like I knew what I was buying. I wasn't tricking myself or I wasn't, hoping for something that he wasn't. And Leo Thompson. So that trade obviously right now has not worked. I brought him in. Obviously, he got concussed in the first second of the game. I remember I sat on my bed. I ordered pizza. I'm excited to watch Leo Thompson play. No one owns him. First hit up, Tino absolutely just rams him, and I'm grateful he didn't get a cat one straight away, and he actually played 40 minutes for 31 points. It's not great. Missed last week. Yeah, not ideal. Hopefully he's back, which I think he will be. Obviously, Jacob Saifidi going down helps tremendously. Hopefully Leo is back. He's not facing concussion symptoms and he can go back into that big minute role. That's what I'm hoping. And that trade doesn't look so bad. Right now, it looks pretty grim. Both of them do, but I think long term they'll help out. And in my buy planning, they both play around 15, which is really ideal. And then, we can do whatever we want with them later on. So that was just round 10, just touching back on that, obviously, because I wasn't in the video last week. And yeah, so this week, obviously, he's scoring 980 points, bringing in Keon. The euphoria that I felt watching him play, 80 minutes in the middle, I was not expecting. Obviously, I didn't own last year while he was going on that tear, and I did really well without him. But watching him play, watching him run twice in a set, make so many tackles, I don't even think he had any offloads to hand from memory. Like he was insane. And obviously, round 13, everybody's going to jump on. But I jumped on a week early. Me and Matty Thompson did, which was really good. I'm happy we both jumped on. Bit of a pod, definitely saved my round. And yeah, it went up about 50K, give or take. So everyone's going to own him from round 13 onwards, and that's fine. But I got in that week early, and that accounts for something, right? Like I've got to make these moves in trying to climb the ranks, right? Especially now everyone's going to only have 13. It's going to be a lot harder or more tricky to make some pretty crazy moves heading into the next couple of weeks. So Joe Tarpanay, a pretty nothing game for him, 58 and 50 minutes. Yeah, a bit of a nothing game for it, really, and still managing to score 58. My other option, like I said, was Cam McInnes, who played massive minutes for a 50. So, look, I think I won out there. Like I said, Tarpanay is an excellent captaincy option heading into round 12, probably the number one captaincy option. But I think I will be going a different direction, maybe. I haven't really thought about it too much. I've thought about everything under the sun when it comes to fantasy over the next few weeks, except who I'm going to captain this week. And I'll go into my round 12 team really, really soon. As you can see, Mr. Aaron Clark has the C on him. We'll see if that continues. But yeah, round 11, it started off pretty okay. I had KPP. Well, a lot of guys, I don't own Fletcher Sharp. So watching him score 30, Ponga going 43 is a net positive for me. Obviously, still own Ponga. And that was actually a really interesting discussion as well on what I was going to do with Ponga and what my trades were looking like that week and for what I was going to be next week. So as you can see in this thing here, I only made the two trades. Obviously, round 12, which we'll get into quite soon. Karaz is out injured, 4 to 6 weeks, horrible. I'm just going to bring in Tedesco, I think. They're pretty much the same player, same buy schedule, play all the majors and all that good stuff. So pretty simple here. You don't really need me to tell you why this is a good trade, but I'll go into that soon. And as you can see here, I only made the two trades. So I'll touch on what I was going to do. So all week I was trying to have fun. I was sick. I wasn't at work. I was looking at this screen and I was going, what can I do? So these trades were always happening. Oh, wrong button, excuse me. These trades were always happening. I didn't waver on any of these. As soon as the app opened up, I knew what I was doing, which normally that's how I play fantasy anyway. I've always know what I'm doing pretty much right away. Um, and I had 123k spare. I had 123k in the bank, and I was looking at my team going, okay, should I hold this to the third trade or should I be a bit crazy? At the start of the week, my trade was Kitio Katoga to Ewan Aitken. I had that trade with, I think, 2K spare at the time. And I was like, sweet as I get Ewan Aitken who I've wanted. I've wanted Ewan Aitken for a little bit now. And then a couple of days went by. I think Wednesday maybe. I was like, nah, look, Kit plays next week. He's doing a job, blah, blah, blah. Also, backspace on that as well. So obviously, if I traded out Katonga to Ewan Aitken, I would have been one short for this week. And I was looking and I was going, okay, Kalen Ponga, he's a bit of a dud. And there was a Mr. Tom Trebojevic who I was looking at going, I knew he wasn't getting selected for Origin. Like I said a few weeks ago, it was my opinion. I just, he's busted, right? Again, it's probably why I shouldn't have picked him. But in my head, I was going, okay, if I can go Katonga to Ewan Aitken, I can do Ponga to Turbo next week. The money should align. I had no money in the bank. And then I came to my senses. I was like, look, I'm doing too much. This is what happens when I don't go to work and I have too much time. I have my mind, I'm playing with it too much. I need to log off and go outside. And I went, no, that's silly. And then I looked at it and I thought, okay, hang on. I've got enough money to go Tom Jenkins straight to Jerome Hughes. And I'm thinking, okay, Jenkins a cash cow. I had 1K spare. Jerome Hughes, a depreciating asset, as I like to call it. It's well, I've stolen it from Brenton from the Talking Lead. Hopefully he allows that. And I say it all the time. And I'm thinking, okay, is this trade worth it? In my head, I was like, yes. I wanted Hughes for a while. I didn't know last year. He's cheap. Is he going to be a keeper? I think yes. The score on the weekend not great. And I'm looking at that going, okay, he's cheap. I'm going from a cash cow, a nothing player sitting in my 21 to Jerome Hughes, who I can play on the week. And the buy schedules didn't really align too much. Obviously, Hughes only plays 18. Doesn't play 50, the first two major buy rounds. And I'm like, okay. And I had that trade locked in. I was so keen. I was so excited. Obviously, I went through Friday, Saturday's games, and that Manly Cowboys game. Daz Tavanga was sitting here in this loop spot. Obviously, Katonga already played. I was looping him with Cleary, and Jerome Hughes was in this spot. And I was thinking, okay, I didn't even plan on looping Tavanga. He was starting at hooker. I said, I don't want to even touch that score. I was being a bit trade happy. I was just excited to watch Hughes. I had Hughes and Nakora in that last game. So I was like, this is pretty pod city, pod central. No one owns these two. It's just going to be me. And Jazz scores 53. It was 53 at the time. And I thought, I have to take that score. I can't not leave a 53 there. That's ridiculous. So I reversed my trade. I have Tom Jenkins here. I take this score. I don't have Hughes at all. But I'm still excited to watch him. And I'm watching the game, and he doesn't kick the ball until like the 36th minute. I'm like, geez, he must be pretty low. And obviously, when I watch fantasy guys, I've said this a few times, but for people who don't know, I don't check the scores like while the game's on. Like I check it at halftime and then at full time. I don't check the scores when something happens. I leave it, and I try to stay out of group chats and stuff as well because I don't want someone to be like, geez, like he's only on 21 or something. I don't know. It's just a weird like mantra that I have. It's a bit silly when I say it out loud. But I went on and I checked his score in particular, and he was on 8 points. And I was like, geez, I dodged a bullet there. And here comes Matt Thompson sending me a message saying, geez, you dodged one there. That would have been bad. And I'm laughing. Ended the game on 19. So that was a blessing in disguise. I still kind of want Hughes as well. Like I'm being a bit silly. I still kind of want him. But anyway, that's a story for another time. So yeah, I take the Jazz Tavanga score. I take Katonga. My team looks fine. Nakora, pretty gross, whatever. 31. I'm expecting a little bit more, but I get what I'm given, right? Sunday, Sunday morning, I'm going, okay, I've got this trade and I've got 120k spare. I'm looking at Dylan Egan and I'm going, if Dylan Egan is benched, I don't want a 600k player that's on the bench. I'm going to trade him. I've got this trade spare. I need to make some moves. If he's benched, a lot of people will be forced to play him. I don't need him next week, and I can trade him to Ewan Aitken. they've got the same buy schedule pretty much, right? And Aitken's kind of aligned with my team a little bit more, and I was keen on him anyway. I wanted you and Aitken before the 70. Don't let that, change your mind. I was keen on him. And I was refreshing when it hit 1 o'clock for the 1 hour, and I seen that he was starting. So I'm like, okay, the responsible thing to do is not to trade him. He'll score well. He's starting. We know what he is when he's starting. I sit down and I watch him tear his ACL in the first 5 minutes. Horrible, horrific. Obviously you never ever pray for someone to get injured. And when he got injured, I just thought, oh my goodness, like if he was benched, I would have made the trade. And I have it written in writing as well to I think the group chat with Maddie and Jamie where I said, God, like if he's benched, I'm going to trade him. And then when he was named, I was like, no, the responsible thing to do is hold the trade. Like I'm not going to do it. And he tears his ACL, and I'm like, oh, obviously horrible for Egan. He's been a gun for us. He's a gun player in real life. But yeah, if he was benched, I was going to make the trade to you and Aitken, and I would have netted myself 70 points. And yeah, oh well, it's fantasy, right? Like at least it was, not at least it was Egan, but at least he was very highly owned. Pretty much everybody kind of owns him and played him, so it's a bit of a net positive in a sense. Like we're not really missing out on anybody. It's not like it was KPP, and only I and a select few others took the zero. So that is what it is. And it was a pretty crazy week. Like I said, I had so much time on my hands that I was doing the most. I was just trying to trade. I'm trying to just be so crazy. And yeah, so it works out. I don't have to take Turbo this week, even though his price is getting to a point where it's going to be hard to ignore. Even if he's running on one leg, he can just rot down in emergency 2021 and you can try and loop him or something like that. So that was that week that was. Obviously, Kalomatangi, I'm really, really happy with. Captain May, again, I'm not really playing Captain Roulette. Obviously, this week we're going to have to because it's round 12. There's a select few options. I'm not playing Captain Roulette. I'm leaving it on Terrell May the whole year. Just gonna, like this was easy for him. 63 tackles, no misses is criminal. And yeah, he's so funny, Terrell. Like I'm always watching him play Warzone in his streams, and he's such a funny bloke. Like I love it. I'm not taking the captaincy off him, especially when he can ton up twice in like 4 weeks or something. Like it's absolutely insane. Um, yeah. So round 12, this is what we're currently up to, and this is what my team looks like for round 12. Obviously, it's not the most exciting. Obviously, holding Jenkins, allows me to kind of play him. I'm hoping Luke Garner is in the centers again because he kind of feeds Jenkins good ball, which is really I'm going to need that. A lot of teams are going to be running the Fletcher Sharp, Herbie, which I just don't have. My team's a little weak this week. Obviously playing Nakora, which I'm fine with, but hopefully he can. They're playing a Roosters side who is absolutely decimated, so I'm hoping he can jag some really good points. Versus those Hosking owners who everybody owns Hosking. I've got Leo Thompson. Hopefully he's named, because that's going to suck if he's not. And I expect big things from him this week with Saifidi not there anymore. So that's worked out in my favor. Obviously, you never pray for someone to get injured. That's horrible. But, when luck goes okay in your way, then it works out. When it doesn't, it's horrible. I've got the bald eagle Jazz Tavanga, which again works out quite well. Gerbo, HIA, he's going to go back to 13, big minutes there. And everything's kind of the same. Like I said, my only trade this week so far, which I think I'll be making another one, but we'll get into that pretty soon, is Karaz Tedesco, sorry. It just makes the most sense. They've got the same buy schedule. Obviously, Teddy misses round 14, which is fine. You can cover that because it's just a standalone buy. And he also misses, I think, 17 from memory, which again, it's a standalone. Should be pretty okay to uh cover that, and especially because my only other rooster is Savala, who I probably won't own, and I have a kind of a plan set in place on why I won't. And the other option is just who do you captain this week? I think Tarpanay will be the most popular, but I'm sitting on the fence at the moment, and I'm kind of liking the idea of Aaron Clark, just with no Fisher Harris and no Barnett. I don't think you can go wrong with either of them. I think Tarpanay has the higher ceiling, but I think Aaron Clark has the higher floor. We've seen Tarpanay bust out wireless 80s and 90s, but I think Aaron Clark will have to play big minutes, which he already has. He has a 3 round average of like 66 from memory, which I'd like. I don't know which way I'll go. The moment it's on Aaron Clark, but again, I'm not sure if I'm working this week. I've got an endless amount of time to make my mind up. And that's kind of where I'm going to leave that. I don't really need to make any other trades for my round 13, my round 12 side, sorry. And I probably won't. I've got 130K in the bank, but that's going to be saved for in a few weeks. And there's a few different directions I can go with this. I've had to play around with it today, and obviously Dylan Egan has to go, right? So there's two things. Dylan Egan has to go, and we're not sure if Dylan Lucas is going to be fit to play. I think he will be. Obviously, Newcastle put out a medical report thing a little while ago before I started recording, and in the medical report, it was only Jacob Saifidi, Bradman Best, and Greg Marju. So they fully admitted Dylan Lucas, which you would think if he was under an injury cloud, he'd at least get a mention. So I'm hoping he's fit, so I don't have to worry about it. But Dylan Egan, obviously ACL, he has to go. It's annoying because he lost about 40 or 30K or whatever. And I was going to trade him last week, would have had Aitken. Anyway, that's a story for another time. But I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, what can I do with Egan? I can wait a week and reassess with this 134K, or I can kind of set myself up in a better direction. And I don't need to make any trades to playable like guys to fill the full 13. But I'm looking at Egan and I'm going, okay, what can I do with his cash right now? And I think cashing him down could be a really good idea for my side. Obviously, I've got 15 trades left after making the one, which is kind of low. A few people might be a little bit higher, a few people might be a little bit lower. And just with being able to field 13 quite comfortably, I've already done all the boring stuff about going through what I can do, teams on buys in the minors and being able to field a team quite comfortably. I think we're not going to have to be making any crazy trade, three, four trades a week. I don't think personally. A lot can change. Last week was crazy. After every game, someone was injured. I get that. But I'm looking at Egan and I'm going, okay, can I cash him down? And I think the answer is yes. Obviously, there's quite a few guys, the two Sharks guys in Dan Atkinson and Halakai. We don't know what's going on, with Ramian with the poke in the eye and Sam Stone Street. We don't really know. It's hard to talk about this stuff on a Monday night before TLT and all that boring stuff. But I'm looking at the Bulldogs prop of Hopboy. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that correctly. And he's someone that's piqued my interest a little bit just because, again, he's going to play this week. I don't need the player this week, though, so I'm not really taking that into account too much. They've got Max King and Kurt Mann in Origin. Kurt Mann, 18th man, obviously. I know they're getting troops back in Josh Curran, Silatili Tupanua. Presto will be there around 15 from his suspension. But I'm thinking Hopway takes a bench spot still. I'm thinking he played 45 minutes on the weekend. Obviously, they had a Saluka Fafita injury, HIA in the first 5 minutes, or whatever. But he got a lot of minutes. And I'm not really, I guess you could say, cash down in a sense. I'm not really going to be playing him or worrying about him. At that price, I can cash Egan down to him, free up about 300K and have 466K in the bank, which I've already done it all. I've already done it, uh, today. Maybe I'll kind of show you guys what it looks like just in case, visually it's a little bit easier for you. I don't even know how you say his first name. I just type LIP, a lip, and I lock that in. So 466K. There's a world where I could do some fancy looping, but I'll worry about that later. I don't have to do that right now. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, can I improve my round 13 team and heading into round 15 with this cash instead of having all these guys that, I've still got Jenkins, who I'm not going to want. I'm not going to be playing him. And that 430 odd K is going to be just sitting there doing nothing. I could turn him into a Jenkins, not a Jenkins. I could turn him into a Campbell. I could turn him into a Ewan Aitken and then turn a Hugo Savala into another 700 odd. And I'm trying to strengthen my overall team, right? And that's what that one trade is doing, allowing me to have a lot of money in the bank. I've already done the maths on things that I'll be able to afford. And something like this does allow me to go from a Jenkins to a Campbell and then, a, let's say, Katonga. Obviously he's doing a really good job right now and I'm going to hold in the short term. But after 12, he's got a lot of buys coming up in that time. And I'm thinking, well, okay, is he going to be a hold? At the moment he is in a pretty tough center spot. But, Hugo Savala, his time's running out a little bit. I'm keeping this cash. I'm stashing it and seeing what I can do. This week I'll cop whatever happens. I expect to maybe hold rank or maybe lose a little bit because my 13 isn't that strong compared to a lot of others, which is fine. I'm not overly worried about that. But if I can strengthen my round 13, round 14 team, then that's what I'm going to do. I've got a lot of big dogs sitting there. Everybody's going to be jumping on Keon Koloamatangi, but I really do want you and Aitken, especially because I'm losing Dylan Egan. So there's a few options to cash out. Obviously, it's not great. There's so much can change, so much can happen. But I like this idea of using that trade to kind of set me up in the future. Obviously, that trade could wait, but you know, I'm thinking, okay, this trade will help me significantly increase my overall 13 and 17 as well, because I can turn a Jenkins into a gun. I can turn a another Hugo Savala into another gun. And then with cash remaining, I could also do something else, targeting these guys who are on the cheaper end, like a Matty Burton or Jerome Hughes or these guys who are cheap. Obviously, they're cheap for a reason, but someone like a Matty Burton who has bottomed out, has he got the goal kicking back? He did on the weekend. Obviously he's got a line up with your buy planning and all that sort of stuff, but he's a target as well. If I can turn two or three of these duds into two guns and like a Matty Burton with this cash, then that's what I'm going to do, right? And I like the idea of giving myself some wiggle room. I really want you and Aitken. I think Jaden Campbell is going to be really, really important over the next few weeks, and just targeting guys like that. Obviously it's not ideal planning so much like doing all these plans, which obviously things will change. That's for sure. But I like the idea of cashing Egan down now. Or the other idea is to just wait until next week and trade him to you and Aitken. I think I will be getting Aitken in one way or another, but it's all food for thought, right? Like we're not, I'm not too sure. Like I said, it's good to get on in front of a camera and just keep myself accountable a little bit and kind of just talk and whatever comes to mind, I work with. But I like this plan. Obviously, like I said earlier, there is, if Hopway starts, which maybe he will, maybe he won't. I'm not too sure. But I expect, again, he'd have to score something pretty good for me to take his score. But let's say what happens if he comes out and scores you a 55, super randomly, right? Like I know I'm being a bit ridiculous, but these things can happen. So I'll figure that around. Again, you got the two Sharks players if they work out well, if they get named, maybe there's a world we can cash them out. It's just about giving myself a lots of money in the bank to make some of these moves. If I can, like I said, turn a Jenkins into a gun. And then, once we're out of these major minor buy rounds, I've got, another two or three guns from cashing Egan down because I did that in round 12. And that's what I'm going to do. It's a bit of a risk, but that's why we play fantasy, right? And I'm pretty sure that's where I'm going to end it. I didn't really have a plan on where I was going to take this, but I think that's a really good runway to end. Obviously, round 12, you all know who's playing. You all know who's the best players to have. Your Herbies, Tedesco's a great shout. We all know that sort of stuff. That's not really my role here to play and giving you guys all the information. Who your captain? I'd suggest it's probably between Aaron Clark, Harpenay, Herbie Farmworth's a good shout, bit of a pod shout, and Isaiah Katoa, who's absolutely killing it. Man, I was kind of keen for him in the preseason a little bit, but at that 550 odd or whatever, I thought, that mid-ranger price, you got to do a lot right to be worth it and to make your 100K. And yeah, Katoa, is he doing a lot right? He's kicking the ball for 400 meters. He's running for 150. It's insane. I wish I owned him. Fogarty's doing a job, but Katoa, is he a captaincy option? I think he is. I just think by, what he's doing is actually insane. Um, but yeah, that's probably where I'll end it, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Again, in the comments down below, just leave your if you have any questions or any of that good stuff. I love to answer. It's the only video I jump on and have a bit of a combo with. I think I've done really well to actually not cough my guts out this whole time. I've been feeling it for about 10 minutes or so. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll definitely be back on next week. We'll see how my week goes. I'm hoping for a decent week. I'm expecting to lose a little bit of ranks. I think everybody will have 13 this week, but my 13's not great. It'll do a job, and that's what my season's been about, doing a job. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.